Welcome to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we're here to talk about what goes on in the village, the township. You know, those government people that make regulations, laws, and ordinances that affect you out there.
That's right, Elgin. And whether you live in the village of Oxford, the village of Leonard, Oxford Township, or Addison Township, these are the people you elected. And the commissions and the committees that make decisions that directly affect you, whether you chose to go to that important meeting or not. And the result could be a taxing situation.
Or other issues called humor. As you know, in every meeting, there's humor.
And then there's its brother.
There is.
Rumor.
Rumor. And also, one of us, we spread rumors, which is close to humor. Okay. But what you have to do is you have to attend these meetings and know what's going on. But if you don't, you can catch them usually on our TV station, OCTV, at occtv.org. And you
click on programs and off you go.
There they are. And let's talk about three different meetings. Actually, there's one meeting that was consolidated in a way. It was with the village council meeting. They had a workshop afterward. So we'll talk about that. No, after the regular meeting that they had.
I thought they had a workshop and then a regular meeting.
No, I will tell you more as we go along.
Well,
don't derail the train. I can see it going down the track.
Very unusual.
It's very unusual. But anyway, that's what they did. But the first meeting we're going to talk about is the Downtown Development Authority. We haven't discussed them for some time.
Otherwise known as the DDA.
DDA, yep. And Sue Bassarded, of course, is the chairperson, for this group. Rod Charles serves on that board. Sam Barna, who's with the school system. Also, Dorothy Johnston, who owns a business downtown.
Studio.
Photography, yep. Gino Malia, who's with the bank. And Pete Schultz, who's the fire chief, of course. Susan Schur, and, of course, myself. I have a chair in there.
Wasn't Pete the former head of the DDA?
He was. He was a former head, and then I believe Bill Dunn, was elected after him. Then
all good guys.
Yep, all good guys. Bill Dunn, of course, supervisor of the township. And so the meeting went on. They did the pledge, got all the preliminaries out of the way. The minutes they read for July 17th, and they were approved. And the public comments, none. As you say, they looked at their shoes and saw the reflection. So there were people there. So, they could have spoken up at that time. Interesting thing with the public comments, though, you know that the public can make comments at any of these meetings, but the board is not allowed to reply.
But usually there's a before and after.
Right. Usually there is, and there was in this case, too. We'll tell you more.
I see.
Okay. They, of course, discussed the bills. Sue Bassarded, who was the chairperson, of course, she presented and introduced Evan Teach, who is the village manager. Actually, he's the interim village manager. They haven't really purchased, bought, enslaved anyone on a full-time basis in that position. Yes. And actually what happened down the line here is that the person that they did hire, and she agreed to accept the position as clerk, did not show. She was a no-show. And she decided to go back to her existing job. Now this is what?
I don't think she did.
She did. She left.
I don't think so.
She did. She left. And I'll tell you more as we go along. Look at all the information this guy's learning. Okay, as we go along.
And you folks out there too. Breaking news?
No, this has happened at least a week or so ago.
Oh, it's broken news.
Yeah, it is.
Well, actually, you might check your
oh, no, I did. Last night's meeting, they discussed it.
I see.
We have a conflict of interest over here. Is she a relative of yours? Is that why you're trying to put her back in the job?
No.
I'm just checking. That's a rumor that we could run here.
This is the gal that came from Rochester Hills, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. She is no longer.
I see.
Okay. You don't see what you're hoping I'll tell you more. Okay. Anyway, they discussed the bills, and the bill total, which Eric Dolan made a motion to approve, let me see, was $6,716.34. And let me see, what about that? There is a question concerning police citations at that time, that they were reduced. Eric Dolan, I said, I'm thinking of a different meeting. Bills were approved by yours truly. Eric wasn't in on this.
Okay.
He's probably watching on screen, though, so that's probably where it came from.
Because there was a lack of police citations?
Well, yeah, according to the police report, the numbers are going down in terms of citations that they're giving out.
Does that mean people
Over
are
last
driving
year.
better?
Well, I said,
Or are they just not handing out as many tickets?
are they a friendly, happier nation out there? You know, they said no, that they have a situation where they're short on police, what do they call them, on the road.
Yeah, I've
people.
noticed an absence of the blue lights up by Myers. Yeah, that could be.
Do they chase you around Myers quite often? Or?
No, but you
Just
see
on
them often
occasion.
enough.
Okay, well, that's true. Okay, so anyway, so the bills were $6,716.34, and they did talk about the old business, which is August 24th. Teach talked about the Main Street in Oakland County that's going to visit Thursday, which would be today, on the 24th. So a number of people are going to attend that. Unfortunately, well, I couldn't attend that one, but
Okay.
we do know that there's big changes coming, you know, in year 2019, you know, for M24 corridor. It runs
Really?
right down through town. Yeah. You've heard that rumor, right?
For the last 15 years, yeah.
Okay. It is getting close. You can hear the sharks swimming.
Another 4 years, another 4
Right.
years, another 4 years, another
is.
4 years.
So then they went into a closed session, okay, a discussion of the contract for the new DDA director. And they came out of it and they approved the contract with conditions to it. There was some phraseology within the contract that they wanted to change. And so it was agreed upon. And just to give you a head start on this thing, the contract was reviewed with the new DDA director, and he agreed to go forward with it. So he is the new DDA director, and we'll discuss that a little bit further too. Comments. Great success with the Lone Ranger Parade. That was pointed out. There was a lot of people there and a lot of fun everyone had. And you can catch that too on our website, occtv.org.
And I got the joy of driving Kurt Graham's old,
You did.
what was it? A Corvair Monza.
Corvair, convertible.
You betcha.
And what I found interesting is the way you drove it. From this side of the road to that side of the road. Why was that, by the way?
Kind of like learning how to ride a horse. No,
No, there's no power steering on it, right?
there's no power or anything on
No power anything. I saw you put your foot out and drag it, but
No, it's actually a very nice little car for 1960
Yeah.
something.
something, one of those years. Take
Yeah.
note, we'll find out exactly. But anyway, I found it interesting. You had to use both arms to turn it. You had
Well,
to
I
use
mean-
both feet.
If you're used to power steering and power brakes,
Yeah,
that's quite a revelation.
it's quite interesting. And the point was, I was supposed to drive it originally, and you drove it, which I found really great. No problem.
It's a
So,
matter of qualification.
right, it was. Anyway, comments were also made that Debbie Earn from the Chamber of Commerce, that she took a very active part as well. Rod Charles, of course, led this parade in its entirety pretty much in putting it together, along with his posse, which he pointed
There
out
were
was very
lot
extensive.
of bits and pieces to that parade, and I think we were number 80, and there was a lot of people behind us.
Right. Now, one more thing before we departed, and that was Sue Bassardit, the chairperson, wanted to make sure that everyone knew that Mike Solwald, who's the acting police chief, will actually be sworn in as police chief on September 12th during the village council meeting at 6:30 p.m.
At long last.
We'll tell you more when we come back right after this.
And turn the monitor off.
Just think, what if we didn't have local TV and radio? Where would I go for local sports, local politics, a mayor, city council, stuff that affects me every day? How about health? Who's covering things that endanger my family? I need to know now, as it happens, from sources I trust, people in my community. No agenda, no bias like you find on cable and social media, just facts. For news I can trust, I stay local. Support your local station. Text TV to 52886 today.
Welcome back to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we've been talking about the Village DDA Committee. And now we're going to switch over to Oxford Village Council. And they had a special meeting on August 23rd.
Yes?
Yes, they did. And Sue Bassard is the chairperson. Eric Dolan serves on this board. I tried to put him on the DDA board earlier.
What
You
time
saw
was that
but,
meeting?
That meeting was at 6:30, I believe.
I see.
And let me see, Dave Kenny didn't serve on that, but Dave Bailey did.
I see. Don't confuse the two.
I was going to put you on that board. Oh, you can't. You're from where? Brandon. Okay.
Oh.
Foreign country, a little distance from here. Dave
Like
Bailey.
a minister without portfolio.
Yeah, right. So Dave Bailey serves on that board, as well as Maureen Helmuth and, let me see, Tom Kinnis. But Tom Kinnis was absent during this particular meeting. He was approved absence, probably business more likely. They did the pledge, got the preliminaries taken care of. They approved the agenda, and they had a call to the public for non-agenda items. Again, no one spoke. So they went directly on to the next thing, and that was bills. They wanted to discuss how many bills there were and what the cost was. And one concern that they had was that Republic, who was the garbage collection company that we had,
Yes.
transition over to GFL, which is a Canadian company.
Yeah.
Republic wasn't doing their, as they would say, due diligence, and
Picking
you
up their
say
stuff,
trash
cleaning
in
up
your
their
front
room.
yard, all over the street. So anyway, so they want to withhold the payment to them, and the payment to them is $11,076.53. And
How does that get resolved?
well, they're going to have a meeting with the attorney, village attorney.
Is that for lack
Try
of
to discuss
performance
this.
or what?
Lack of performance, yes, it was. And what the attorney did find out is that Republic employees didn't know that GFL was putting out a hand to hire most of them. And so they had heard that they were just going to be plain fired and let go. So that's why they became a little belligerent along the line and didn't perform their duties properly, which is no excuse, I don't think. I mean, if you're working for a job, regardless if they're going to close it down, you try to
Their
still do
equivalent
your
of a
best.
blue flu?
Yeah, blue. They had lots of blue, black, and blue flu going on. So anyway, so it may cost that company, Republic, $11,076.53 before they're done here.
I guess
However, they did approve it. They did approve the payment just in case.
And what was the eventual outcome for those employees?
Well, some of them did get hired, and some of them weren't hired. And I got a feeling the ones who weren't doing a good job probably did not get hired.
A
More
roof.
likely. Yeah, a roof. Okay. Unfinished business, there was none. So this meeting went along pretty fast. New business, approved full financial ability was the subject.
For the village manager?
Yes, for the village manager. Put Kevin Teach on the bank account also. So he would handle the financial end of the village
Is it
business,
Kevin or
which
Evan?
he should. Evan. Did I say Kevin? Evan.
Okay.
I'm correct. It is Evan, and that's what I had. But
I see.
I was spreading another rumor. We're going to change his name. We've done that several times here, mostly me, but and you've done it occasionally.
I thought it might be two different guys. I don't know.
Okay. Well, the DDA director, his name is Glenn Pape. And his background, of course, is, he's a graduate of Michigan State, has a master's degree, that kind of thing. We discussed him on an earlier broadcast. And he, of course, had to come before the village council in order to get approval by the council. Even though the DDA approved him, that's the last step to getting the job. And so he agreed to the contract that the DDA had proposed and put forward. And so his appointment was approved also.
Good.
So he is the new DDA director. His name again is, so soon you forget. Okay.
Kevin?
No, his name isn't Kevin.
Glenn
Director is Glenn Pape. Pape.
P-A-P-E?
P-A-P-E. Pape.
Okay.
Glenn Pape. You'll get to know that fella after a while, you folks downtown, particularly with the businesses. So with that, there were some council comments. There was an acknowledgement from Sue Bassardit, the chairperson, concerning the Bob Scott birthday presentation that they had. Well done by the Leader newspaper, and she wanted to point that out.
Okay.
So good job. That takes care of that. And they went right on from there to a village council meeting work study. See, now I told you it went after instead of before.
Yeah, that's unusual.
didn't like that, did you?
No, I didn't. Normally their workshop takes place before the meeting.
Take a note and send them a letter.
Yeah, right.
Okay, we'll see how that flies, folks. Okay, not very well, I suspect. Okay, Village Council, they met right afterwards, and Suba Sardit was chairing that
You mean the workshop?
workshop. What did I say? It's actually a work study. Workshop,
Oh.
work study. Yeah.
What's the difference?
It's a mix of words. If it quacks like a duck, it must be.
I see. They got some work done.
Right. Or Cherokee Indian. Could be either one.
I see.
Okay. From the woods, you don't know.
Get on
If it's a
with it.
bird or whatever. Okay, so anyway, we'll go on with this. Village Council, people that were present were Eric Dolan, Maureen Helmuth, Dave Bailey, of course Tom Kennis was absent again, in approved absence. Bob Davis, the attorney, was there. Mike Solwald, the police chief, who's going to be.
So at this workshop, they really had a quorum.
Well, they did. Don Brantley, it wasn't really meant to do any decision making, so he really didn't require a quorum, but there were a lot of people there.
Okay.
Don Brantley, who is the DPW executive director there. And let me see, we have Glenn Pape, who is the newly founded DDA director, as
Okay.
well as Bill Dunn, who's supervisor of the township. And Bill attends a lot of these meetings. You know, he is a village resident also.
Yeah, but,
So, and
but
he
his
just
input
wants
as
to know.
the supervisor of the township is always valuable.
Yeah, it provides continuity to some degree, you know. That way they don't run, as you would say, willy-nilly.
Willy-nilly?
Okay. Put that in your note too. Okay.
Willy-nilly?
Yeah, do not run willy-nilly. Okay.
Is that like pell-mell?
Right. Well, they went around this large table, and Kevin Teach, of course, acting the village manager position, he said that he wanted to be informed of what's going on within the village because he's fairly new. You know, he is new. Excuse me. So he just wanted to know what was going on, and so he said he DPW Don Brantley. He wanted to talk to him. He wanted the input, of course, from Pete Schultz, fire chief, as well. And he said that Suba Sardit, then she chimed in as a chairperson. She said, well, I have some priorities, or we have some priorities. And and here are three of the priorities. One is for a new village manager, full-time, a village clerk, again, full-time, and also to simplify budget format, you know, in the future. So it's easier to understand what's going on with the budget, if they really have money or they have no money, you know. Excuse me, have no money. Oh, how come? What happened? Okay, so you want to know all that. And also they want to talk about the Mirrors program.
The what?
The Mirrors. It's the retirement funds, which is Michigan Employment Retirement System.
Oh,
And that's for the, you know, the monies that go into retirement. You have to keep that solvent. And apparently there's some communities that don't do that and talk about willy-nilly.
there are some companies that don't do that.
Right, some companies that don't do it too, you're right. So they really have to stay on top of this because it's really regulated, excuse me, very, very closely. With that, we'll be back right after this, folks.
I used to think news is news. It's all the same. But it's not. There's a big difference between local broadcast news and cable news. See, local stations are part of my community, connecting me to local news, weather, and sports on every device. It makes sense. Get the news from the people I trust who actually live here. No agenda, no bias like on cable shout shows or social media, just facts. For news I can trust, I stay local. Support your local stations. Text TV to 52886 today.
Welcome back to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we were talking about the special meeting that they had, which you call a work study program that the
As you
Village
will.
Council was doing. Okay. And we've talked about Mirrors program. And the next thing we're going to talk about is Maureen Helmuth. She chimed up and she said, I have some concerns as well. They're mostly office concerns. And she said they need to hire a bookkeeper, that they need to review education of the staff and keep them updated, and they need to review wages down the line here and make them appropriate, you know, to the job that they're in.
You're going to slash them?
Well, they could probably do that. This guy would do it for sure. I'm not know about me. But anyway, I think you're already on the radar.
Employees always get nervous when they say appropriate.
Yeah, appropriate. Yeah. So anyway, Bob Davis, the attorney, he did chime in there then. He said there are definitely financial concerns that he has, and public comment, though, during meetings, he said that it needs to be reserved, for the public, and not so much in terms of conversation back and forth between the council. He said that could actually violate the Public Meetings Act. He said because it's not posted. If you bring up a subject and you discuss that subject accordingly, it needs to be, put in the newspaper. Yep. So his point is well taken there. They had kind of a quick discussion over that. He said that it needs to very much be structured meetings that you're involved in, and not, there's that word, willy-nilly.
I see.
All right. And every community, though, he said, here's the good news, they all have the same problem. So he said, if you get to step up on this one, you'll solve the issue.
Right. Robert's Rules of what?
Yeah, whatever that was. Okay, I know, it's there. Eric Dolan, I think, was pretty precise in some things, and he said he wanted to know where the finances are. He says, prior to making financial decisions. He's not going to make any decisions unless he knows how much money you have, which is a good point. Anybody who deals with funds, no, that's the kindergarten rule, that you got to know where the money's at.
Either have to match or exceed the Gesalts.
Gesalts, it does. That's German information there. Okay, so he said that they need to select a full-time manager as a priority. Staffing is a requirement in terms of training and so forth. Mirrors is definitely a concern because you don't want that to get out of hand. Eric is right on cue on that one. And also Don Brantley, then, he spoke up and he said, well, the DPW has these concerns. He said the ordinance enforcement, he said, needs to be more stringent. He said staffing, he said if his organization is up to par right now, but he said that's an ongoing issue in every organization, in every business. Infrastructure is a major concern because things are starting to, wear out. And one of the things he's talking about is equipment that they have. That a lot of his equipment now is starting to degrade, and so may in the future require some upgrading there. Chief Solwald, the new chief to be, I'd say he's, I can call him chief. You can too if you want.
Yeah,
I think he's pretty much in.
Not chef, but
Not
chief.
chef, chief, yeah, that guy. Okay, staff cuts. He's concerned through the past few years that staff has been cut, and they have to take up the call to fill in the gaps.
Is this the staff that was cut because of the dispatch?
Well, officers also were filling part of that responsibility. For example, if they get somebody that comes in, they put him in jail. There's got to be an officer there.
Sure.
And that kind of thing. And they don't have really a full-time officer for every shift at this time. They're that limited. And he would request that they do have the ability to have one full-time officer on.
So he's asking for one more head or what?
Well, he's going to put it together and he'll make the presentation, I guess,
see.
at some point here.
Okay.
Okay, so his concerns are, worthy of looking at and getting corrected for him. He wouldn't ask for something he didn't need, knowing him as Mike Solwald. Okay, would request one full-time officer. I mentioned that. He's concerned about mixed brands of products that they have, including automobiles, that there's a helter-skelter of different vehicles. They like unification for identity, for the village police. And so he said that's kind of a little bit of a long-range plan that he has, but it'll fit in. Traffic issues, he said there are some concerns with stop signs and yield signs and those kind of things, which they're working on. Village manager, Evan Teach. I almost call him Kevin again. Maybe we should change
Is
his
it Kevin
name.
or Evan?
It's Evan.
It's Evan.
It's Evan.
Good, I got to change
Teach.
it again?
Yeah, I could do that. Okay. Anyway, so he said budgets are a concern, which they all reiterated. Audits and financial needs to be precise, and again, that's what was reiterated by the board. Smooth running office and processes need to be in place. Pretty common sense. M24 is a major concern coming up the line. He
Coming
said,
up the line?
Yep, it's almost here.
Is that like going south or going north?
It's going to come both
Coming
north
up
and
the line.
south. North and south.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's what, 2019?
2019, but he said everybody has to be on board and not lose any businesses downtown, because he said if you lose businesses, it could be, 100 years before you recoup
Have they determined how big a stretch of road MDOT is going to modify?
They're going to go, I think, from the south through
From the south, how far
Lake
down?
Orion.
Lake Orion?
Yep, from Lake Orion all the way up to the bridge.
Does it include
in
Lake
Oxford.
Orion?
It does include Lake Orion. It's part of the program.
Oh, morning rush hour will be fun.
Oh yeah, that's what he was saying. Is people going to find ins and outs and all over, and overs and unders if they can find them. So it's going to be a really chaos type time. The fire department needs to get involved. The police department, all of the governmental people that are involved, in our community in order to keep things stabilized. So this point is well taken there. Bob Davis says to Mr. Teach, he says, "What is your assessment of office staffing needs?" He
How
says,
long has Mr. Teach been on
he's
the
only
job?
been here for a short period, maybe a month, 2 months.
Okay, well, that's
Yeah, it's new.
You get a
But
feel for it
he
then.
said, he said that needs to be analyzed yet, and he's working on it. He said he will have information available by September 12th. Eric Dolan says, first of all, you need to have that information because how can you establish budget if you don't know what the expenses involved? So he's right. So he said, well, I understand. He says, I'll put that information together, see what the cost of the office is going to be. Mr. Dolan said because of part-time hirees and other interim employment, he says that he's concerned that spending is outside the budget. And he's probably the first one to raise that red flag and wave it around, which is a good idea. And he said, we don't know. He said, we need to know how much money we have. He says, and he said one thing is we don't have a treasurer, which is critical, and that's one person that we maybe need to look at for the village.
I know in the past that function has not so successfully been managed
That one,
by
I saw
a person doing clerk and treasurer.
That's true. Yep. So anyway, as I pointed out before, the clerk that had accepted the position chose not to take the position, headed back to Rochester. An interim clerk is to be hired, though. According to Mr. Teach, or Manager Teach, he has somebody in mind that he's going to bring in for part-time that'll work that position. Currently, Susan...
I was surprised when I called over there the other day and Susan Nasser answered the phone.
That answers the next thing. Susan Nasser is filling in
Again.
to take care of all the basics and the preliminaries required until that
It's
time.
good of her to step in like that, I'll tell you.
It is. Catch all this meeting and others on OCCTV.org, and you'll see how your village council has turned things around and looks real good. What's coming up?
Well, we got a few meetings. On 9/5 at 7 o'clock, the Village of Oxford Planning Commission. And on 9/11, we got 3 meetings, all at 7 o'clock. Oxford Township ZBA, Village of Oxford ZBA, that's Zoning Board of Appeals. Check both of those because sometimes they cancel them. And at 7 o'clock at the Village of Leonard, you got the council meeting. That's it.
That's it? Okay, I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
We'll catch you next time right here on Minutes by Minute.
To pose, now shush. She makes the sound she makes to calm me down.
She makes me deep in the sea.